There is a painful irony hiding inside modern parenting. The more educated, thoughtful, and intentional a parent is, the more likely they are to make the exact mistakes that create dependent, fragile children. This is not an opinion. Child psychology research consistently shows that high-achieving parents, driven by love and awareness, often overcorrect, overprotect, and overfunction on behalf of their children. The result is a generation of kids who are academically prepared, but emotionally and practically helpless. Understanding why this happens requires looking at the psychology behind parenting behavior itself. When parents are highly educated, they are more aware of potential dangers, academic pressures, and emotional harm. That awareness, without the right framework, translates into control disguised as care. Every solved problem, every smoothed-over conflict, every rescued moment feels like good parenting in the moment. But behavioral psychology tells us something different. It tells us that competence is built through struggle, that resilience is forged through failure, and that independence is only developed when children are given the space to practice it. The 5 mistakes covered here are not about bad parenting. They are about well-intentioned patterns that quietly wire children for dependency rather than self-sufficiency. The first and most widespread mistake is intervening too early. A child struggles with a puzzle, a social conflict, a homework problem, or a difficult emotion, and within seconds a parent steps in to fix it. This feels nurturing. It looks like support. But from a child psychology standpoint, it is robbing the child of what psychologists call mastery experiences. Mastery experiences are the moments where a child discovers their own capability. They are the neurological foundation of self-confidence and problem-solving ability. Every time a parent removes the struggle before the child has had a genuine attempt, the child's brain registers one unconscious message: you are not capable of handling this alone. Over time, that message becomes identity. The fix is not to become cold or withholding. It is to introduce what developmental psychologists call the pause. Before stepping in, wait. Ask a question instead of providing an answer. Say, what do you think you could try first, rather than here is what you should do. That single shift, practiced consistently, begins rewiring a child's relationship with difficulty. Educated parents are particularly vulnerable to this one because they can see consequences coming from a mile away. A child forgets their lunch, and the parent drives it to school. A child leaves their project until the last minute, and the parent stays up helping them finish it. A child behaves poorly, and the parent negotiates with the teacher to reduce the impact. Each of these actions feels like love, but behavioral psychology is clear on this point. Natural and logical consequences are among the most powerful teachers available to a developing child. When consequences are consistently removed, children do not learn accountability. They learn that someone else will manage the outcomes of their decisions. This is the direct psychological pathway to entitlement and learned helplessness. The correction here is not cruelty. It is restraint. Allow the forgotten lunch to mean a hungry afternoon. Allow the late project to receive a lower grade. Allow the poor behavior to carry its natural weight. These are not failures of parenting. They are the curriculum of real life, and children who experience them early develop the internal accountability systems that carry them through adulthood. Emotional validation became a cornerstone of modern parenting advice, and for good reason. Children need to feel heard and understood, but there is a critical distinction that many parents miss. Validating an emotion is not the same as endorsing the behavior that follows from it, and it is not the same as rescuing a child from the discomfort of feeling it. When a parent rushes to eliminate every instance of frustration, sadness, or anxiety, the child never develops emotional regulation skills. Child psychology research on self-regulation consistently shows that children who are shielded from emotional discomfort struggle significantly with stress tolerance, impulse control, and persistence later in life. The goal is not to make children feel good in every moment. The goal is to help them build the capacity to move through difficult emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Acknowledge the feeling, name it clearly, and then guide the child toward managing it rather than escaping it. That is the difference between emotional support and emotional dependence. Decades of research led by psychologist Carol Dweck on growth mindset has made this finding impossible to ignore, yet the mistake persists. When parents consistently praise intelligence, talent, or results, they are inadvertently teaching children that their worth is tied to performance. Children raised on outcome-based praise become risk-averse. They avoid challenges where failure is possible because failure threatens their identity. They become dependent on external validation to feel capable. The shift is straightforward, but requires deliberate practice. Praise the process. Praise the effort, the strategy, the persistence, and the willingness to try something difficult. Saying "I noticed how hard you kept working even when it got frustrating" builds a fundamentally different internal architecture than saying "you are so smart." One builds resilience, the other builds fragility dressed up as confidence. It is worth pausing to consider what children in many lower socioeconomic countries are doing at ages that would surprise most American parents. In parts of Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, and beyond, children as young as 5 and 6 are cooking meals, caring for younger siblings, carrying water, tending animals, and managing household responsibilities that most American teenagers have never been asked to attempt. This is not a story of hardship alone. Research into these communities consistently finds that children given genuine household roles develop competence, confidence, and a deep sense of belonging within their family unit. The difference is expectation. These children are not shielded from contribution. They are invited into it early, trusted with real tasks, and understood to be capable members of a functioning household. The American tendency to protect children from responsibility in the name of love or convenience has quietly produced the opposite of its intention. When a child is never expected to contribute, they never discover what they are capable of. Capability is not something children are born with fully formed. It is something they build, task by task, through being trusted to do things that actually matter. These 5 mistakes share a common root. They all involve a parent doing the psychological work that the child needs to do for themselves. The correction is not about doing less out of laziness. It is about doing less with intention, creating the conditions where children can build competence, accountability, regulation, resilience, and ownership. Start this week by identifying which of these 5 patterns shows up most in your home. Pick one. Apply the adjustment consistently for 2 weeks before adding another. Behavioral change in parenting, just like in children, is built through small, repeated actions rather than dramatic overhauls. The parents who raise genuinely independent, high-performing children are not the ones who do the most for their kids. They are the ones who have learned, deliberately and sometimes painfully, when to step back and let their children rise.